Hello, Jeff.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Carlos?
Good, excellent. we were just waiting for you to start, actually, and I want to welcome to you today for having agreed to be here with us today in one more episode. Quite peculiar to say the least, because this is the first one that we do at a remote location other than the Nearsoft office. So we're broadcasting live, folks, from beautiful Cancun. And I myself, I don't know if you can see it because there's a window here. So
Yeah, ocean in the background. It's great.
yeah, well, it's a good thing. Can't see it myself, but all right. Jeff, well, first of all, like I said, I want to thank you for being here. I know that we had a previous conversation, and I look forward to this one. We're now broadcasting live, by the way, and the first thing that I would like to do is to introduce you to our DojoLIVE viewers, and then without further ado, then you can do the talking better than I can, way so much better. Well, okay. Today we're going to have Jeff Allen. Jeff is an actor, writer, producer, and director, and a number of other hats that he's wearing. And I'm sure that you folks are going to be quite amazed at what he's doing and his accomplishments. And also, I have to mention that Jeff has been also in the software engineering industry for Switchfly, and I'll let Jeff also talk about that in particular. So, Jeff, one more time, welcome, and thank you for being here with us today. I look forward to this chat. Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I know that today's topic is kind of intriguing, to say the least. It's intriguing because you went from one segment to a very different one. You went from the technology industry to being in the movie industry. How did this happen? And by the way, folks, today's topic is labeled "Anything is Possible." Tech guru turned actor, and that's where it starts to get interesting. So, Jeff, welcome. Tell us about it, please, and introduce yourself. And welcome to the show.
Of course. Well, as you mentioned, my name is Jeff Allen, and first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you and to share a little bit about my life and what I've been through.
Please.
And so, yeah, so I guess I'll get right into it with regards to the title of today's talk. So I'm originally from San Francisco, and I after graduating from Stanford University, I then went into the technology industry. And after a short stint in working for a business consulting company, I then moved on to the tech world, the tech startup world, and I joined a company, Switchfly. And I worked in product management for about 5 years, growing one of the main product teams. And actually, I got the opportunity to work with a number of people from Nearsoft during my time there. And anyway, while I was in San Francisco, I had this thing in the back of my head, and I always wanted to try acting. And at that point in my life, it really was just sort of an intrigue of mine, and I didn't really expect much to come about it. And so I looked up some classes, just Googled like acting classes in San Francisco, and I just figured I'd try one out. Yeah. And what happened was I fell in love with acting. I fell in love with the process. I fell in love with just everything about it. And so over the next about 3 or 4 years, while I was working for Switchfly, I continued to act. I continued to take classes in San Francisco. I started, I got my headshots taken. I got an agent in San Francisco, and I started getting some jobs. I started getting commercial work. some corporate video work, some web series stuff. I was even in a feature film up there and some short films. And over that time, I just decided that this is what I'm really passionate about. And so I figured out how can I position myself so that I can move to LA and pursue, being an actor. I knew that to be a professional actor, you really have to be either in Los Angeles or in New York, in the United States. And so, I wanted to stay on the West Coast. And so I figured out how am I going to move to Los Angeles and make this happen? And so that's what I'm doing now. I've been down in Los Angeles for about 4 years, and I've been acting ever since down here. I still do some consulting work for Switch Fly and in the technology industry. So, and I'm very fortunate to have that and have that background. But that's kind of my background of how I entered into the acting world.
I see. So, from what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty much sure that what you did, the move that you did from Fly in the technology world to acting was just simply following your passion, right? It was something that it was there. It was like a hunch. It's something that you felt that you had to do, and then you just simply went and got it, grabbed it, right? And which is, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's exactly right. I mean,
okay.
I wanted to make sure that I really wanted to do it. And I think, one thing that I've learned in my life is that we don't really know like how it's going to work out. We have to take sometimes we have to take a leap of faith. And I did that, a lot of when I told my family and friends, like, I'm moving to LA, I'm going to become an actor. They kind of looked at me like, okay. It wasn't like, no one was like telling me, oh, don't do it. But they're like, wow, that's a big risk. I mean, you've got this great career working in the tech industry and working for Switchfly. Why risk all that? And, I think for me, it was, it's like what you said. You got, I believe that I wanted to follow what I was truly passionate about, and I found that in acting, and I continue to find that every day in acting. Sometimes it takes just going for it, not knowing how it's going to work out, but knowing that you're going to figure it out. You're going to figure out how to make it work. I think you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It happens a lot, and sometimes I'm like in a place like this where there's more like noise, and I have to just mute myself so that it won't get in the way. Okay, so the first question that I'd like to ask you, Jeff, is the following: coming from the technology world, what sort of lessons or learning experiences did you have that you could say that helped you make that transition into acting? What did you bring into acting from the technology world?
Well, the one huge advantage that I think that I had from being in the technology and really the business world, working for a business consulting company, and then working in product management, which has a lot of, in addition with working directly with engineers and developers, it's also very much working with the different business aspects of the company, whether that's sales, whether that's account management. What I got from all of that, and what really gave me an advantage in pursuing acting, is the business part of acting. There's whole, when we watch movies and we watch TV shows, we see the acting. We get to see those performances. And that's really, as actors, why we do it. That's what we love and what we're passionate about. But there's this whole other part of the business that actors have to figure out. And if they're going to make it, they have to figure out, at least when we're getting going, a good 80% of our time is spent on how do we figure out the business? How do we progress our careers, how to, I mean, I can go through all of that stuff, but it's something that actors, I think that, that come straight out of college, they don't get that experience. They don't get the experience that I had working in business, building relationships with people, working on building out really a business. How does that work? Now I think that the disadvantage for me was that I got going late, so by spending 7 years basically in the business world before I really got into the LA world of acting, I was 7 years behind everyone else in acting terms. But I think that it also was able to accelerate a lot of the things that would have taken me a really long time to learn, because I got that business experience.
Okay. Yeah, I was when you use the word business, I can see in your bio and everything I have about you that you're focused. It's a great deal in the business side of the equation, rather than not only in the technology side, but also in the business side of the equation. Actually, you call yourself a creative entrepreneur,
Yeah.
which I believe that you definitely are. So my question is, when I hear this expression, this term, creative entrepreneur, sometimes, and this is what I've heard from other people, is sometimes you can be either one or the other. I mean, I'm a creative person. I come up with stuff. I create things. But then I kind of fail on the business side, so I need to team up with someone who's good at business, and so that he or she can run that part. What piece of advice can you give our audience so that it becomes easier for them to blend the two aspects? I'm an idea man, but I want to sell this thing that I'm working on, but I don't have what it takes to make a business out of it. Is that really like a cliche, or can we get over it real easily? What would you tell these people who are having these thoughts?
So yeah, I think, well, first of all, on the with regards to creative entrepreneur, I think that if there's any actors that happen to come across this episode, or this,
Yeah, of course.
We're every actor is an entrepreneur, and we take on a high degree of risk for to pursue that career.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what the definition of an entrepreneur is. And I consider myself a creative entrepreneur because I'm exploring a creative outlet, an artistic pursuit, where and creative could be, for example, in the tech world, you could be a creative entrepreneur. Maybe there's a creative software platform that you're looking to build. But to answer your question, I think that what I would say is that it's all about just getting the right team together. And that comes through meeting people and building relationships with people. And it's all about bringing that together. If you're the idea guy, but you don't have the execution expertise, then you can find someone that does have that. And so, for me as an actor, for example, I owe a lot of my success to, it's not all about me. I have an agent, I have a manager, I've worked with stylists, I've worked with publicists before. And so all of these people, I've worked with many directors and producers, and all of these people I consider, part of my team. I also have coaches, I have acting coaches, I have life coaches. And so all these people have helped to empower me to become, the best actor that I can be. And that same, I think, principle transitions to really anything you want to do in life, whether, it could be building out a new software platform. Well, no one can do it all. I mean, if you can, then I'd love to meet you, but I don't, just like at Switchfly, I was one guy. I was the product manager, but I needed engineers to build it. I needed sales guys to go sell it. I needed QA people to make sure that it works properly. All these people were are an integral part of the team and integral to the success of the company.
All right, so this is what I get from what you're saying. It's definitely about putting the right team together, right? When I mean, and I'm talking about specifically the working on the technology realm on the technology industry. It's about putting the right team together, right? A great team. So I'd like to ask you, Jeff, if I may, before we move on to your acting career, and what is a great team? What does it take for you to build, or for anyone to build a great team? What does it take? What would you advise to companies out there just starting out, how to come up with a great team? Or what are the traits that a great team should have?
That's a really great question. I think that I think that great teams are built by great leaders. And so I think your question really is like, what is leadership? And I think that to build out a great team, it's first and foremost, I think it's listening to what is, because you may not know, you probably don't know the answer to everything that you need to answer to fulfill your vision. So talking to people and finding out from those people and really listening to them and what can they contribute, what skill sets do they have, what's their vision, do your visions align? And it's I don't know, it's very, without being like talking about a specific particular company or specific, for example, my acting career, I would have more specifics about that. But, I think just in general, it's finding out, what do you need, putting together a plan, right? What do you need to fulfill and you might know part of that, right? So you start with the plan and this is what you think it needs to be, but going and talking to other people that have done it before, people maybe that have already been successful in launching a company that may be similar to what you're trying to do, and really just finding out what works, what has worked, what might not work for what you're doing, and then getting the right people that, I think that in addition to skill set, like, do people have the right skill set that you need? It's also, is it the right fit? Do they work well with you? Do they align with your vision? And that, I think that it all comes down to listening, and really listening from just from what they're trying to say. What are they saying? And letting go of what your preconceived notions are about the problem or about what you're discussing.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's just that I have my own set of questions, but other things are popping into my head as I'm listening to you, and I'm trying to from this conversation, I'm trying to blend the two ideas together and see and try to best grasp of your whole career, what you're doing. And here's what I just thought. Actually, I'm going to put this aside because this is a new question. I like to, if I may, I like to go to do this like using the Star Wars approach, which is I'm going to go all the way back and see what happened first, right? After I saw all the movies, then I'm going to go back. Okay. How did you get into technology in the first place? That's the first thing that I'm going to ask you, and then we'll we'll go with the sequels.
Okay. Yeah. So it kind of just happened by chance. So I went to Stanford, and actually, to be honest, originally I went into Stanford thinking I'm going to get a degree in computer science. And I grew up in the Bay Area, and I saw what was happening with the tech boom in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I graduated from high school in 2001, so went off to Stanford in 2001, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. Well, when I got into it, and I just decided that computer science, the actual coding part of it, was just not for me. And I ended up exploring a lot of different other avenues in college. I was looking at potentially like going into the foreign service. I ended up studying international relations and getting a minor in economics. And so from that, I was by the end of Stanford, I was kind of torn between, do I want to go the private sector route, or do I want to go the government, the public sector, maybe foreign service route? And so what I ended up deciding on was working for a technology business consulting company, Accenture, and I did that in Washington, D.C. And I made that decision because I wanted to see both sides. I wanted to see the private sector, but I also wanted to see government and the public sector as well. And I thought that working for a private company that does consulting for the government would give me, sort of both sides of the coin. And anyway, I did that for 2 years. That experience working for Accenture really gave me the right background to jump over and become a product manager. And during my time in DC, I was away from home, and I decided that, I wanted to be back closer to my family and friends that were in the Bay Area. And so after 2 years there, I just started looking. I also decided that Accenture was too big for me. That company's 150 to 200,000 employees. And I just really wasn't directly seeing the results of the work that I was putting in. And that was part of why I decided I want to go work for a smaller company. I want to go work for a startup. And it sort of just worked out perfectly in that I gained the right skill set I needed to be an effective product manager. And the location was perfect because of my family and friends. And so it was really sort of that's why I say it kind of happened by chance, where I ended up landing with a startup, Switchfly, in the Bay Area. That's how I got there.
Okay, great. One more thing. When you got to Switchfly, and one of the things that I wanted to ask you as well is, and this leads me back to the team part, to assembling a great team. In your experience, especially in the startup world or in the software as a service company realm, usually there's like the development teams are comprised of people who happen to belong to different origins, geographically or nationality. You have people working one team. They can be either across the street or across the globe, and then these teams they have different views, different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages. And I know that in the technology age, those things are easier because we can communicate, right? We can communicate in real time and such. But still, the difference in cultures prevails because that's what we are. I mean, we're different. We're all spread all over the globe, and especially in the case of global teams or globally distributed teams. So, if I may, I'd like to ask you, Jeff, is there any type of situation that was difficult to handle in terms of the culture of the culture clash, and or any other clash for that matter? Because again, we're talking about distributed teams with different cultures, different nationalities. Did you ever encounter those in your experience? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Well, it's a great question. I'm trying to, I had the opportunity to actually do quite a bit of traveling and work with a number of clients while I was at Switchfly, and at Accenture for that matter, that were, for example, while I was at Accenture, I was on a project where I lived in Belgium for 3 months. And we were working for a U.S. client, but many of the employees or all of the employees really were from Belgium. And then while I was at Switchfly, I worked with clients that were in Malaysia, in the Philippines, in South America, Brazil, Argentina, and then worked with engineers that were in Mexico. I really didn't run into any sort of major cultural challenges. I think the biggest challenge would have been like language barriers, and as Americans, I think we take for granted the fact that we really don't have to. Well, we don't. 99% of the time, we don't have to learn other languages. We take for granted the fact that that English is becoming, is kind of the global common language, right? And
of course.
So but yeah, there's still language barriers, right? I didn't have to learn new languages, but other people may not be all that. Their English may not have been all that good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think that you have to just be patient there, right? Because ultimately the relatability for everyone, for all of us in any of these situations is the fact that we are all human beings. Mm-hmm. We can relate to each other on that same level. We all go through the same type of pain, the same type of emotional experiences, in vastly different ways. We experience all of those feelings and emotions in different ways, but ultimately at our core, we are all human beings. And so I think that we can all relate to each other in that way. And you got to just be, when someone else is trying to take it on themselves to learn and communicate with you in your own language, you got to be patient with that. And so to kind of summarize that, I didn't run into any big cultural challenges, but there was definitely the language barrier is something you have to be patient with and have patience to overcome that.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that part, and I like to, if I may, like to finally, so that we can talk about other things, I'd like to reframe my question is, maybe the conflict was not in the cultural part, right? But instead, what I was trying to say is, what elements of working with people from different nationalities and geographies affected the most the outcome, because you as a product manager, okay, what would you say that, okay, this is what really got into the way of a great product? Like, it could be language barrier, it could be a time zone difference, right? It could be religious festivities, whatever. So
Sure.
what would you say that how can these differences or these risks of poor outcome be minimized because of these differences in teams? Okay.
So yeah, you mentioned one that I didn't mention, but time zones is huge, right? I mean, I think that we were actually working with a different engineering team in India, and that became, I think they're 12 hours ahead, and that became a problem because you'd have this, essentially you'd get information to them, and then they wouldn't really be able to take action on that information for 12 hours. And then, so it's a 24-hour cycle before if you didn't communicate that properly, it's 24 hours and you're back to square one. So I think that minimizing risk in terms of time zone is either, well, two things. One is trying to align your teams on similar time zones, at least where there's, at least where you have a couple hours a day where there's an overlap, so that then you can have direct communication during that time frame. Or if that's impossible, or excuse me, if it's impossible to have, your teams on similar time zones, then you have to adjust schedules. In adjusting schedules so that there is at least a few hours of overlap. And I'd have to do that a lot, like, working at 11 p.m. Because our client is in Malaysia. So that's one way to overcome or to minimize any risk on time zone differences.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. Okay. I'd like to move on a little bit. Okay, your time with Six Fly came to an end, and then you decided that it was just about time for you to move on to pursue other endeavors. And I'm talking about your acting. So, and you already mentioned how it kind of went about as far as getting into acting. Now, I'd like to ask you more specifically, when you got into acting, I mean, you were obviously driven out of passion, out of decision, out of whatever it is. And then, but correct me if I'm wrong, okay? I'm just assuming here that maybe in the beginning, things were not completely easy. It was not, a downhill ride. So what sort of challenges did you experience in your acting career? And how did you overcome them?
Well, yes, absolutely. It was definitely not a downhill ride. Definitely a lot of challenges. And to be honest, like, I still have a lot of challenges today. I face some, some different than when I started, but some similar. It's one of the most challenging things to do, and this comes down a lot to the business side, is getting in front of the right casting directors. And, there's a lot of different avenues, a lot of different paths to pursue to do that. But if you don't get in front of the right casting directors, then you can't book those jobs. You can't book jobs on TV shows. You can't book jobs on the major, films. And so, the other challenge that I'll kind of, I'll bring these two together is there's, unlike I think probably every other industry, there's no common career path. Or I shouldn't say there's no common career path, but there's really not a model to follow coming in here. You can't come and be an actor and then say, like, okay, what do I, for example, at Switchfly, right? I started as a business analyst at Accenture, and then I was promoted to a consultant, right? And then I moved laterally over to Switchfly, and I was a business analyst, and then I was promoted to a product manager, and then I became a senior product manager, and then I became a director. There's no cookie cutter path, and you'll talk to actors that have done it before, and you're like, I see that you're successful. You're on you're a series regular on a major TV show, where you've done all these films. How'd you get there, and how do I replicate that? And the answer is always, they can tell their story, but it's going to be different for every actor. Now, there is some sort of like the common things that you need, bringing this back to the casting directors and getting in front of the right people. It's just, and it comes back to what I was talking about before. It just comes back to relationships and getting out there and meeting as many people as you can in the industry and starting to build those relationships. And that's how that I've gotten my agent. That's how I've gotten my manager. And that's how I've met different casting directors and producers. And ultimately, it's these people that create opportunities for me. And so by taking that action, by taking the action to get out there and meet these people, I'm creating those opportunities through them to get in front of the right people that, you know, sooner or later it's going to cast me in that dream role of mine.
Okay, alrighty. I also understand that well, you started out in acting, you moved into acting pretty recently, I would say. I mean, in acting terms, right? In film industry terms, which is 2012. So from that point on until the recently, then you're headlining Medusa, right? Which is a film. Tell us about it. How did it all happen so quickly? And how has it gone? Tell us about it.
Yeah, fortunate. So there's a film Medusa that was recently released in theaters, and it was a limited theatrical release, meaning that it wasn't in, you know, every theater across the country, but it was in about 5 to 10 cities across the country in theaters. So it was my first film that I starred in as that got released in theaters. So it was an amazing opportunity for me. And the way it came to happen was it didn't come through an agent, it didn't come through a manager. The opportunity presented itself through me submitting. So there's a way for actors to go online through various sites, and one of the main ones is called Actors Access. And what happens is the casting directors and directors, they will push out through these sites all the different roles. And so I just happened to come across this role, and I submitted to the director, the casting director, and he called me in for an audition. And so we initially actually did an audition over Skype, kind of, you know, just like this really. And he sent me some scenes that he wanted me to do for him and audition for him. And then, you know, we ended up, you know, meeting and having an audition, and I was apparently exactly what he was looking for in the character. And that's how it happened. And he casted me, and it was an amazing experience. We shot in multiple locations in Southern California, and yeah, so that film will be out in the fall of this year on all the video on demand platforms and on DVD and all that. So you can keep an eye out for it there and give it a watch.
Oh, absolutely. We'll be on the lookout for that. And before when we approach the wrapping up of the session of the broadcast, then perhaps you can share some links or some your Twitter handle, you know, so that people can follow you and stay updated on what you're doing. And which leads me into wondering, and I also wanted to ask you is, how about your or what do you know about how do you feel about your career extending to other parts of the world in terms of being known, being recognized, for example, in Latin America or in Europe or in any other countries? What has your experience been thus far as being recognized and sought after in other places in the planet?
Yeah. Well, so there's a couple things that I've had, you know, experiences internationally. First of all, the director of Medusa is he's originally from Panama, and so he's very well known in Panama, and so I've had some exposure into that particular market. This is probably my first exposure into the Mexican market, but you know, hopefully this will help get the word out a little bit and down there. And then, yeah, exactly. And then last year I did have the opportunity with Medusa to go to the Cannes Film Festival in France, and that was an amazing opportunity. And one of the things that I really just so loved and appreciated about that film festival is how international it is. You meet people from all over the world. I met people from Asia, I met people from Europe, I met people from North America, from South America, from Australia. I met people from every continent in the world, and it was really an amazing experience to experience their what they've gone through from their filmmaking and acting experiences, and really to kind of get that cross-cultural exposure was really amazing. So I love what technology is doing for bringing our entire planet together, and the possibilities are really endless in terms of what technology can do for bringing filmmaking, or for an actor like myself to bring my work to the entire world.
Listening to you, there's something else, especially about when you're talking about bringing your acting, your work to the rest of the world, and then so that means obviously we're going to see you on screen and such. And I had this thought because I'm kind of a fan of going to the movies, to the movie theater, and also having some uh, paid movie service to watch at home. And every time I go and look for something new to watch, I have this personal tendency towards technology-oriented types of films or documentaries, or I'm not going to say sci-fi because I'm not talking about that kind of technology. I'm talking about things that could actually happen in real life. I'm talking about movies like The Social Network, just as an example. There are many others out there, or this one with what's The Net or something along those lines. That was an old movie, but still, it's all these technology themed flicks that we see nowadays. My question to you: if you think of those types of themes for a movie, is there any? If you were invited to participate in a technology-based or technology related movie making, is there something that you would say no, in particular, something like a specific theme that you would say, no, that's not for me. I'm not going to do it because that's like way off the wall. So is there anything that you would not like to do, something that you would say no to? For example, I'm sorry, let me just add this because I remember this. There's just this recent movie with Robert Downey Jr. He was this he was in technology, and he was a very high-end software engineer. And then what he did was he created something like some kind of technology to store his own brain waves and consciousness into some sort of out of this world computer, so that with the passing of time he remained alive even though he was dead, right? And then at the end of the movie he came back to life. And so it was something really, really, really like way out there. I would say is, in my view, I mean, this is really not realistic. Are you attracted to maybe performing these types of roles or participating in these types of movie projects?
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of why I was a little bit for a loss of an answer when you asked the question. It's I can't think of something that I can't think of a particular genre, or not genre, but I can't think of a particular idea that I wouldn't want to be an actor in. Mm-hmm. It comes down to the script. Like, how is the script good? Do I really align and really align with the vision of the script? Mm-hmm. But for me as an actor, it's not my job, nor do I want it to be my job, mm-hmm. to judge the character. It's my job to figure out how to make, you're talking about realistic, right? Well, it's my job as an actor to make that character realistic. And
I see. Right.
And that's for me to figure out, and that's part of the fun of figuring it out. I might read this character and be like, not as an actor, I might read it and be like, okay, well, I don't really believe this. Now, like, a lot of that has to do with the script too. Like, that's where I'm talking about. Do do I really relate to the script? And do I see, you know, do I align with the vision of the script? But as long as all of that's there, then it's for me to figure out those little things about, like, well, this, how do I make the behavior of this character real and consistent with what this character is saying and doing? And that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like fun, and I would assume that if I were to ask you the next question, which I am, is the following: we're talking about technology-themed movies, but if we're talking about biographic movies, for example, let's suppose that you're invited to play, say, there's this movie, Job, right? And if you were to play a biographical movie, which one would you like? Who would you like to play? In particular, if let me give you an example. If you had two characters to play that are well known in the technology world, like Bill Gates, for example, and you have Bill Gates and then you have Richard Stallman, which type of character, or do you feel more? Would you lean towards? Or if you had a choice, which one would you like to play?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. No one has. Well, this isn't necessarily what I would want to play, but we've seen movies about, you know, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. We've seen Steve Jobs and Apple. You know, the other big giant out there that we haven't seen is Google. We really haven't seen those characters. Now, I'm not sure that the reason that I hesitate to say that I'd want to play those characters, I'm not sure that I necessarily am a great fit for, you know, the two main guys at Google. Maybe playing the CEO of Google would be, you know, would be interesting. I'm trying to think about what other particular characters there are in the technology world. I'd love to play a Bill Gates character. You know, I think I could play Bill Gates. Who else is out there? There's a lot. You know, it's a great question and one I've never really thought of. Really not having.
Let me put it this way. Let's take an actual example of some of that. There's a movie called The Internship.
Yep.
Okay. So, and it's not about Google, but in a way it is, because it's framed Google and it happens. The location is at Google. Okay. So how do you feel about these two characters? I mean, is that a realistic possibility that something like that could happen?
Well, I just want to make sure I'm thinking of the right movie. Is this the one with Seth Rogen, and it's a comedy, right?
Yeah, it's a comedy. It's not Seth Rogen. It's another character. I mean, it kind of looks like him. It's taller. Can't recall the name right now, but
is that the one with Robert De Niro?
No, actually, let's see. It's with this actor, with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn.
Oh, okay, right.
It's an internship, and where they play like these older characters who got into an internship at Google, and then they go through a whole bunch of, you know, funny situations.
Sure.
But even though I haven't really been at Google and the Googleplex, I don't know. Maybe it's not realistic what happens in there. At least not the action or the scenes or something. But if you were to play something like this, how would you feel about it?
I mean, I'd love to play a role like that. Now that's a comedy, and so, you know, a lot of what I think that when characters are playing a comedy, you want to make those characters real, right? We always want to be, you know, the behavior of the character is real and believable. But there's some I think that those characters are given a little bit of latitude in what's believable and what's not believable, because we know that it is a comedy. Whereas if you look at something like Jobs, where Michael Fassbender played Steve Jobs, like that's a very real and like raw movie where it really is a portrayal of that man, and it's a drama. It's not. There's nothing funny about it. He is who he is. But to answer your question, I'd love to play a role like what Vince Vaughn or Owen Wilson played in The Internship. It's light, it's funny, it is, you do get to see little aspects of the technology industry and what might occur at a company like Google, but there's some latitude in what's believable. I think as the audience, we have to sort of suspend our belief or disbelief, because otherwise then it's not funny.
Yeah, of course. As you say, it has to be given some latitude because it is a comedy. Okay, we're approaching the final minutes of the broadcast. What I would like to take advantage of those is for a couple of things. Again, let's go and blend the two elements together, technology and acting. If you could, let's say, I'm going to use the same word. If you could blend the two areas together in order to come up with a great project, and this is just from the top of my head, what would you think of? And so that you can send it out there to the world. Would it be a movie? Would it be or an application about or a portal about movies? What would it be? I mean, how would you blend the two together?
Well,
business.
Yeah, no, and I am working on a couple different projects, which doesn't apply to the question. But with regards to your question, something I was just thinking about the other day is how we are becoming, especially kids, teenagers, we are becoming so addicted to our phones. Like I when I don't have this, I almost like go through, like it's almost like a drug where I like go through withdrawal. It would be like someone that smokes cigarettes and all of a sudden doesn't have cigarettes. And I think that it's something that hasn't really been done, where we haven't really examined, in a cinematic experience, what these are doing to our lives. And it's something that I just thought about this yesterday, and it's completely relevant to your question. I think that I would love to see someone, or maybe I'll take this project on where we look at, we examine that. I think there's been news and documentaries that have been done about it, but if there was a film, a narrative film where we explored, what happens to, how is this affecting human beings? And there's so much inside this phone, right? It's not just this phone, it's all the apps that are on it.
Yeah, of course.
And how I become addicted, or how we, become addicted to those apps, and how can we let go of that and just reconnect with the human experience?
Exactly. That's a very good point, and I'm all with you. And actually, I kind of go through those discussions with my wife and kids and such. So yeah, I hear you, and I know what you're talking about. So hopefully, something will come out that we're gonna that can be explored, where you take part in it, and we'll be on the lookout. Jeff, is there anything you would like to leave our audience with before we go? Anything to share? Maybe it could be a comment or a Twitter handle, or whatever it is. This window is yours.
Sure. Well, what I want to leave you with is thank you for watching, if you've watched, and thank you, Carlos, for organizing this and hosting this.
Absolutely.
It's been really great to connect with you. And I don't really have any particular words of wisdom to leave with, but thank you. Thank you for inviting me and for watching and letting me take part in this experience. And I'm going to keep a lookout for the next ones that pop up, so I can watch some of the other people, because I think that this is a really great this is a really great thing that you're doing, where you're bringing together people from different parts of the world, from different backgrounds, and allowing, everyone, allowing, like I was talking about, reconnecting to the whole experience. And this technology is allowing us to do that and go across borders without physically having to go across borders. So
yeah, of course, that's quite an advantage. And well, I want to thank you actually for having agreed to be here with us today. And you and I are going to be in touch, because I think I mentioned to you what we're going to be doing. We're going to create a whole bunch of things that I'm going to be sending your way. I'm not going to mention this right now, but you and I are going to be in touch. And also, we're going to be sending you some tokens of appreciation, which are non-digital in nature. And but I hope that you enjoy them. So we're going to be connected so that you can tell me where to FedEx them. Okay, Jeff. Thank you again. Thank you for being here with us today, and for joining us in this broadcast from beautiful Cancun. I don't know if you can see this, what's going on out there, but it's a heck of a day.
Oh yeah, I wish I was up there in that parasailer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I look forward to that myself. I haven't really had the time, but hopefully I'll have a couple of hours to do so. Okay, Jeff. Thank you so much.
And yeah, just if anyone wants to find me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter,
yes,
you can find me at my Twitter handle, or my handles are at YesJeffAllen.
So yes, Jeff Allen, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll make sure to share all that information and with our viewers, and it's all going to be in our both in our channel and our website. So I'll send you all the information that you need, so you can share them yourself if you wish. And then with that being said, again, one more time, thank you so much for being here with us today. I look forward to being in touch, and you have a wonderful day and a lot of success in your career, Jeff.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.